Very good evening to everybody who's present here. I thank you all for taking out your time. And also, I just want to start off by saying that given we are still in the midst of a pandemic and there's so much uncertainty looming over our heads, like for everyone in all aspects, in every walks of life. And I know a lot of us are starting to get back slowly into normalcy, while some of us are still coping and trying to get by and mourning some loss. So I just want to thank all of you for being here and for giving your time. And also, given that we are just 6 days away from India's 74th independence. So I think gives us even more reason for us to celebrate in this way and gives us more reason to stand together, be there for each other in any way possible. And this event itself, I think it's like a commemoration of this togetherness that we have. And I hope that as the art community, we can contribute to this by having these discourses, by sharing our works, by sharing our paintings, by sharing our insights. So I hope we can do that today. And so I will just give a little bit of a brief introduction about this whole program and what it is about. So India at 75, also known as the People's Movement, is a CII initiative. Here, CII is the Confederation of Indian Industry. And what CII does is it brings all these different, it consults and it brings all these different sectors and different communities of people together from different walks of life, including the government and academic students. And then you have even housewives, and then you have industrial leaders. And so the whole inspiration that came for bringing about this India at 75 was when Professor Coimbatore Krishnarao Prahalad in 2007, when India celebrated its 60th year of independence in New York City, he envisioned and he brought about this idea of a developed India, of a developed nation, and in three major dimensions. That is economic strength, growth in economic strength, technological vitality, and moral leadership. So this grassroots initiative that was then taken upon by CII is what we see today. And it has been spanning over different areas ever since March, ever since May 2008. And so this year, when it is the 74th year of India's independence, we have India at 75 coordinating with Arts and Culture Department as of what we see now. And so just to give a brief of what Arts and Culture Department's endeavors are, is its preservation of, as we all know, Arts and Culture Department and its endeavors to preserve the rich cultural heritage and ancient arts and culture of the region, but also to promote and expand cultural activities in the state. And as we can see, this contribution can be showcased with this event that we're holding today. And so just with that, I want to then give a brief of the organizations that are holding this event at the moment. That is the Riti Academy of Visual Arts, which was founded in 1991. And so since its inception in 1991, it's been 30 years now. And Riti Academy has contributed to the art community of the state in numerous ways, and not just the state, but I think the whole of the Northeast and even outside the Northeast. So the objective, I will just line, the objective of Riti Academy is to nurture, sustain, and propagate the genuine understanding of aesthetics, with emphasis on indigenous conceptualization and attitude towards the arts and culture. And Riti Academy has really taken part in a lot of activities, and namely, there's one particular one called the Thoshun International Art Camp that happened in 2005, and it had participants all over, young and old, from the Asian countries as well as European countries. And in 2007, the Thoshun Art Exhibition of Northeast artists was held in Dhaka, Bangladesh, with the support of the Indian High Commission of Dhaka, Art Club Bangladesh, and the Greater Sylhet Indigenous Peoples Forum. The fraternity has also done numerous documentations in the state of cultural practices, of music, and they hold art classes as well. And they also provide awards to visual artists of the state yearly for their achievements. So that's a little bit about Riti Academy and a little bit about Northeast Arts Initiative. So Northeast Arts Initiative is a newly founded platform that is especially dedicated to the artists of the Northeast. It aims to bring together artists, art writers, and researchers into an integrated space where artistic discourses, nuances of artistic perception, art appreciation, and art education is celebrated. So it's founded by Afreen Krepak Krim and myself, Nafisa Biankongwir, in September last year, 2020. And we hope to bring attention to this region of India through a close examination of this untapped and overlooked gamut of talent that makes up the Northeast. So without further ado, and thank you for listening to this brief introduction that I had given you, I will now call upon Rafael Wadri to give his papers. So, and the topic for his paper is the First Indian War of Independence and Introspective. So, Rafael, if you could please present your paper.
Rafael, please unmute your audio.
Sorry. Thank you, Nafi and Afreen. Thank you, Nafi and Afreen. Now, I would like to present this paper. But before that, I would like to impress upon those artists who are present in this online Zoom meeting right now to listen to this presentation carefully, because essentially I purposely didn't put any images on this presentation, because I was trying to share this knowledge to the artists and to whoever listen, but particularly to artists, so that they can think and let it trigger their mind to create some images out of this presentation. So basically, like what the topic of the talk has been given, I call it the True First Indian War of Independence, a retrospective. So let me start straight away with the paper. In 1927, the princely state known as Hima of Nongklao, under the chieftainship of Siem Tirat Singh, Siem Le, had an alliance with the British civil Commissioner David Scott for construction of the road connecting Assam with Sarmabali in Bengal. After 2 days of deliberation, the British official grew impatient and offered a crate of alcoholic beverages to the Darbar Hima Nongklao, to which they cordially refused until the completion of the meeting. It is pertinent to state about certain facts that was also endorsed by the British on the civilized conduct of and decorum of the debates and deliberation in the Khasi Darbar of Hima Nongklao, which indicated about the effectiveness and relevance of the Khasi folk democracy. The British official remarked that the deliberation is more civilized than the chaotic debates of the British Parliament. The meeting continued, and ultimately the resolution was in favor of the British request with certain conditions. For a few years, the cordial relationship prevailed between the British and the Hima Nongklao until some conflict arose with the intimidation of the British forces against the Khasi citizen of Hima Nongklao. Consequently, the conflict escalated and warfare erupted with the massacre of the two British army officers, along with several soldiers, by the warriors led by Tirat Singh himself on the 4th of April, 1829, which was popularly known as the Nongklao Massacre. The description by the British official, Charles Allen, revealed that on the morning of 4th April 1829, the occupants of the Nongklau Sanatorium woke up to find that the bungalow surrounded by some 500 armed Khasi warriors. Fortunately for David Scott, he had set off for Cherrapunji only the day before. So it was Lieutenant Richard Gordon Bedingfield, the older of the two officers, who went out to talk to the crowd. According to the account published in the Bengal Observer, he was given no opportunity to find out what the disturbance was all about. Quote, they immediately seized him, and after tying his hand behind his back, and cutting the tendons of his legs, commenced shooting at him with their arrows. It is said that he told them if it was his life they wanted, to kill him outright at once, which they accordingly did, and cutting off his head, placed it on the rock. Unquote. Another officer, Lieutenant Philip Bolton, retaliated but could not resist for long and escaped with few soldiers. However, they were chased by the Khasi warrior and assault near Khanapara, and he died along with few other soldiers. Thereafter, the full-scale First Anglo-Khasi War broke out with the Khasi warrior fought with guerrilla tactics, while the British soldier could not counter them and intimidated the civilians. Subsequently, Bormanik, the chieftain of Shillong province or Himachal, and later Ngap Singh Siem of Hima Maharam, collaborated with Tirat Singh Siem in the war against the alien forces. Unfortunately, few others subjugated province, owed allegiance to the British supremacy, and disrupted the freedom struggle. And this is the infamous divide and rule policy of the British. Ultimately, Tirat Singh Siem, along with his warriors, succumbed to the betrayal of trust by the British forces under the guise of reconciliation, mediated by the fellow brethren. The treachery was, however, perpetrated by the shrewd and unscrupulous British trader known by the name of Mr. Henry English, by violation of the sacred Khasi oath of licking salt from the blade of the sword. The treason led to the arrest of Tirat Singh Siem on January 1833 after 4 years of violent aggression, and he was kept in custody at Dhaka jail in Bengal as the prisoner till his demise on the 17th of July 1835. The British historical account stated that Tirat Singh Siem surrendered, but actually the simple Khasi chieftain was tricked by the clever British merchant, unbecoming of a gentleman at that point of time. It is interesting to note that without any disparaging remarks, but simply placing facts about the assumed and alleged historical blunder on the freedom struggle in India. It was commonly believed that history was written by the conqueror, while in the instant case, it was the alleged observed as the negligence of the subjugated mainstream community on the actual freedom struggle in the remote and isolated region of the country. The Sepoy Mutiny of 1857 was a rebellion by the Indian soldier Mangal Pandey, who served under the British East India Company. The failed rebellion against the British imperialism lasted for 10 days, was officially taken as the first Indian revolt against British colonialism. Then the warfare of 4th April 1829, known as the Nongklau Massacre, led by the independent Khasi chieftain Tirat Singh Siem, that claimed the casualty of 2 senior British Army officials and a host of other British soldiers, was not in the authentic record of the country. The Nongklau Massacre, led by Tirat Singh of Hima Nongklau on 4th April 1829, escalated into a violent war for more than 4 years until he was arrested on January 1833. Mangal Pandey rose in rebellion against the British on 29 March 1857 and killed a few officers before he was immediately arrested and sentenced to death by hanging on the 8th of April 1857. Moreover, the encounter of Tirat Singh Siem, along with other accomplices against the British, is a full-scale war between sovereign states that lasted for more than 4 years. While the revolt of Mangal Pandey is the resistance against the exploitative mercenaries that he sacrificed his life within 10 days of aggression. If nationalism is desired by the country, it will be justified for the nation to reconsider the sentiment of regionalism and gracefully alter the facts of history in the highly regarded perspective. It is not required to demand anything from the central government, but it would be a decent gesture to analyze and scrutinize for the authentic information in the annals of history. This is a short presentation from my side. Thank you very much. Nafi, I'm done.
Yes, thank you so much, Parafel, for your enlightening paper. It really was fantastic. And I hope that whoever is here now, if they do have any questions, please put them down in the chat box. And yes, and also please, yeah, to keep your microphones mute while the speaker is presenting, because it can be quite interrupting. We might have some sounds coming from every other microphone, so it's a little disturbing. And so now we will move on to Afreen's paper. I'll just give a little bit of an introduction to Afreen's paper. Her paper seeks to critique the dominant Orientalist and colonial discourse that defined Hindu identity and culture as lesser to the West. To examine the impact of the Swadeshi ideology in art and the artists interested in the art of Ajanta and miniature tradition. An outline of the major leaders and their contributions, such as E.B. Havel, Sister Nivedita, and Abanindranath Tagore, shall also be mentioned within the contextual framework of revivalism art movement. So without further ado, I ask Afreen to present her paper. And I will make you host so that you can
Share my screen.
Yeah. There. And I request everyone who is not presenting to turn off their microphones as well as their video, because I think that somehow also disrupts the connectivity and the speed.
Okay, so I'll begin with my paper. Indian nationalism was dichotomous, depending upon the Orient and Occidental positioning in history. The Orient defined nationalism as a sign of feverish patriotism and Swaraj. On the contrary, to the Occident, nationalism was defined as radical terrorism. It is true that Indian nationalism never sought for a peaceful dialect between the colonized and the colonial power. Instead, its quintessence sought to evoke a collective consciousness that would rid itself of the facets of westernization and its implications on national identity. Partha Mitter observed that the triggers of such a patriotic eruption and response had to do with the ruptures of traditional society and its cultural values, which were deemed as barbaric and backward. Westernization swooped in as a saving grace to the colonized and weaved in their subconscious mind that westernization was the absolute truth. Westernization as a sign propagated modernity, modern values, technical advancements, systematic religion, and cultured living. To achieve the aim, the tool of education and academic discourse was a prerogative. Partha Mitter observed that the Bhadralok community of West Bengal took full advantage of Western education in the hopes to gain colonial favor. However, English education did not guarantee equal social status equivalent to the white man. In fact, the new class of Indians were ridiculed as hybrids. In an attempt to further aggravate the already demoralized community, the colonized sought to marginalize them further in an attempt to alienate the apparent connection of the community to their original Aryan lineage and prioritize the superiority of the Darwinian doctrine. This double alienation, equipped with the fact that the European scholars and archaeologists were uncovering the rich heritage of India's past, encouraged a cultural nationalism, or what is better known as Bengal Renaissance. Nothing boosted budding nationalism more than an appeal to the past, stated Partha Mitter in his book Art and Colonialism in Colonial India, 1850 to 1922, Oriental Orientation. The Bengal Renaissance, in a sense, a, res- conjured a response that needed cultural regeneration. Mither noted the first stirring of nationalism, as in India, especially Bengal, were articulated in literary works, succeeded by playwrights, novelists, and poets. Whilst the British continued on their campaign of rediscovering India's golden past, the Orientalists sought to categorize and represent the Orient, in this case the Indians, into a structured binary, whose analogy was the white man's culture. The white man was cultured, but the brown man, the Orient, was savage, barbaric, and uncultured. The false consciousness of the colonial discourse continued to be encouraged as the absolute representation of the other or the Orient by colonial politics and heads of state. Edward Said, in his book Orientalism, Western Conception of the Orient, made a vital observation. He stated that the Orient can never represent itself. In fact, the Orient can never speak for itself. In a similar fashion, Partha directed one's attention to W.G. Archer's book India and Modern Art, 1959, which had a very distinct inclination to the Orientalist discourse on the East. According to the scholar, borrowing of aesthetics by the East was considered inferior, whilst the West borrowing from the East is justified, for the West claims to know the East better. Thus, Picasso's inclination to African art and its aesthetics was perceived as the West acquainting itself with the Orient as well as claiming its culture, whilst Ganganendranath Tagore's affinity to abstract was considered as plagiarism. Orientalism as an academic discourse never sought to equate a mutual influence of the East and West. Instead, pride itself on representing the Orient on the basis of exteriority. Pathamaker pointed out that the discourse failed to account artistic intention as well as a relationship between artist and intellectual source. While the Orientalists continued in its deductive academic discourse, the local Bengali nationalists discovered the wider eruption of Hindu nationalism throughout the country. Swadeshi or self-reliance was one of the strategies of nationalism, and it was catapulted by European scholars and Indian leaders alike. Max Muller discovery of the Rig Vedas confirmed the pre-assumptions of a collective Hindu descent and lineage. E.B. Havels furnished the aesthetic value of Indian art, including Mughal miniature and Ajanta mural. Sister Nivedita was also a moral supporter of Indian Swadeshi campaign and had written on the art of the Indian scene. Kumar Swami is another prominent figure who had written additionally on the Swadeshi doctrines. Abanindranath Tagore is another crucial personality that spearheaded the art of modern India to embrace an art of a lost tradition. The painting Bharat Mata 1906 by Abanindranath Tagore was a sign that signified radical propagandas of the Swadeshi doctrine. Sister Nivedita contextualized this painting to befit the current wave of Swadeshi ideology and termed it as a representation of Mother India, much opposed to the artistic intention. The woman draped in traditional sari was an iconic and popular symbol of self-reliance in the wake of 1905 partition of Bengal. This event triggered a nationwide outrage to an already growing national antipathy for the British Raj. Revivalism, or what is better known as rediscovering India's heritage past, thus became a prerogative. Revivalism became the pressing priority as artists of the Bengal school were introduced to new paradigms as opposed to the classical pedagogy of Western aesthetics. However, one needs to cross-examine the term revivalism or revivalist itself. Revivalism was a term conceived by Western scholarship. Percy Brown described Rabindranath Tagore's work as highly decorative, fashioned in the formal attributes of the Mughal school and indeed revivalist. On the contrary, R. Shivakumar made a perceptive observation that Abanindranath Tagore's art is not a response to the cultural ambience, neither an exemplification of the ideology. Rather, it is an individual expression that later harmonized with the Swadeshi discourse. The artist began exploring the aesthetic language of the Indian heritage in his painting series called Krishna Leelas, 1895 to 97. The figures become slender and elongated, using the technique of wash and a perspective that is less mathematical. Referring also to Pahari and Rajasthani school is evident. So these are the references of Rajasthani miniature and early Pahari miniature. Nevertheless, keeping in mind the artistic intention, one cannot digress from the apparent correlation of Indian nationalism with Abhindranath Tagore and the Bengal school. Abhindranath Tagore's quest for an authentic Indian language was made possible because of his affinity with E.B. Havel, and thus began a mutual friendship. E.B. Havel introduced Abhindranath Tagore to the art of Mughal miniature, and the artist himself subverted its formal attributes in his own artistic practice. However, it was never intended to be a mimesis or a revivalist. Instead, the artistic intention was that of a personal quest for a lost Indian language and Mughal historicism. The painting Passing of Shah Jahan 1902 had all the formal attributes and architectural features of the Mughal school. The constructed perspective is a clear indication of Arbindranath's classical training in his early years of his artistic practice. On the contrary, the figure of Shah Jahan and his lady attendant had none of the sensuous forms as evident in Raja Ravi Varma's paintings. By 1903, so these are some of the examples of miniature paintings. By 1903, Abanindranath Tagore started exploring the art of Japan under the mentorship of Okakura. It was this collaboration that enabled him to adopt to a new technique of wash and gradation, the Japanese technique juxtaposed with Mughal miniature aesthetics. So I'm just giving you a run through of some of the examples. These are paintings of his later period where he used the technique of Japanese wash as well as Mughal miniature. E.B. Havel arrived in Kolkata in 1896 and was determined to actively engage in changing the academic structure of Government School of Arts. His introduction of Oriental arts was met with much resistance by the students whose curriculum was strictly classical arts. Arthur Mitter noted that Havel discarded all the antique classical figures and replaced them with Indian art. In addition, encouraged all art students to study directly from nature and live human figures. Faced with increasing hostility, he sought an ally in Abhindranath Tagore, and it was at this juncture in history that Abhindranath Tagore's quest for Indian style expounded, and upon E.B. Havel's departure, Abhindranath Tagore took over as the acting principal and continued to institutionalize radical reforms in the art institution's aesthetic ideology. The final stage of rediscovering India's past art heritage was the discovery of Ajanta and the mural tradition. The next generation of artists such as Nandalal Bose and Asif Halda would explore the aesthetic sensibilities and subvert it in their own art practice. I will just give you a run through of some more paintings by Abanindranath Tagore using the technique of Japanese wash as well as Mughal miniature. Okay, And that is my presentation. Thank you. I will give this time back to Nafi.
So I will now go to the run through of the exhibition, and I'm just going to share my screen and the presentation. Are you able to see the slideshow?
Yes, Nafi, we are able to see it.
Yeah, it's there. Yeah.
Okay. So just a little bit about the exhibition, because as we've spoken before and how I've given the introduction about how we have to look forward into the future and how India is supposed to be in when it reaches 75 or even more, what is there to come in the future. I think it is also important for us to look back at what made us and what brought us here today and what brought us to this place where we are free, and then we have our own statehood, we have our own nation. And so this first category of paintings, of artworks by these artists from the state, it is a tribute to the various freedom fighters, warriors, and important figures of the region. So the first artist I'll be showing is Mario Pathao. So this painting of his of Tirot Singh's aim, and Tirot Singh is actually a freedom fighter of the Khasi people, and he is the aim or the chief of Nongklao. And just a little bit about how the flora and how he's incorporated the flora and fauna into his interpretation of this Khasi identity. I think it's quite interesting. The use of this clouded leopard and the rooster and the foliage. So, and then his other work also is of Kyang Nangba. Kyang Nangba is also a freedom fighter of the Jaintia Hills. He led an uprising against the Britishers, but sadly he was, in his fight against them, he was hung and at a place called, and he was hung publicly for everybody to view at La Musiang in Joai. It is a town in West Jaintia Hills district on the 30th of December 1862. So, and in the same way, I think Mario has incorporated quite richly the flora and fauna. And as I go ahead, I will just because as I go ahead, these figures will keep reoccurring. So I'll try to give as much of my interpretation into it as possible. The next artist is Dr. Peacefully Kharkongor, and his painting of Kaphan Longlai. So as many of you know, and maybe for a few who do not know, Phan Nonglait is the first female freedom fighter of the Khasi Hills. And in this particular painting, we can see a depiction of an event where she devised a plan and brought these British soldiers here, and then she made them drink the local beverage, and they after having the drink they were intoxicated and then were unable to do anything much. And so what she did was she took all their arms and their weapons and she threw them in the hole of waterfall that is there nearby this area, and the waterfall itself was named after her much later. So yes, this is the painting done by Dr. Peacefully Kharkongor of Phan Nonglai. The next one is by Dennis Marbanyang. This is a painting of Pa Tugan and Sangma. Pa Tugan and Sangma is he is the freedom fighter of the Garo Hills, And as you can see, I think what is important to view in all of these paintings, and the ones that we will be seeing also, is the accuracy in the visual interpretation and visual representation of the different aspects that attribute to the culture. So if you see right from the weapons that he used, and the shield, which I read was made with the plantain stems, and also the sword and the clothes that he's wearing. All these things attribute so much to the culture and the region of where this particular person is from. And I think how the artists have given importance to this is something that we have to see. And just a little bit about the next artist, Rivaldo Maulon. So this portrait of Reverend J.J.M. Nichols Roy, it's a tribute to him. And so he is an advocate for the indigenous rights, as we all know, and he was the one who pioneered the sixth schedule of the Constitution. And so we have much to thank him for. And if many of you know, the sixth schedule, it is of the Constitution, it was made to establish autonomous district councils in the indigenous areas in the Northeast. So progress was made quite much right from that time. And, fight against the Britishers was done in many ways. The next artist, Raphael Wadri. He's also made a depiction of another freedom fighter known as Kyang Nongba. Kyang Nongba is a freedom fighter from, if I'm not mistaken, he is a freedom fighter of
Kent Hills.
Kent Hills, sorry. I'm so sorry. I get puzzled like this when I'm reading. Yeah. So, and I think I had already mentioned about him earlier. I'm very, very sorry. So yeah, and going in line with what I had said earlier also about the accuracy in the visual representation of certain elements that attribute to the region and its culture, we can see it in his paintings. Another one of Ukyang Nangba, sorry. And Upat Tugan Sangma, whom we had also seen earlier in one of the paintings. So, and he was also a martyr because he died in the hands of the Britishers when he was fighting for the freedom of the land in Garo Hills. Uttirat Singh Siem. Another artist in this category is Tony Slaw, and this painting titled A Marksman. What is different from the others, even though he did, as we can see from behind, he has used a figure, but more focus is given on the landscape. And even though it is familiar, at the same time, I think it's quite ambiguous because we cannot really pinpoint as to who this person is. It could either be Ukyang Nongba, it could be Tirot Singh, or anyone. And I think that's quite nice because we can have our own independent interpretation of this, and more so of showing this landscape and how it's engulfing the figure. I think it's quite interesting. Another painting by him called Rest from Battle. In the same way, I think he shows the presence as well as the absence of human interaction of the people of the place, just from this arrangement of the bows and arrows, and this stone erection here could most probably be our Mawana. And just another category different from the other one is this one, which I created, is Khasi identity. And I think it's important to give this distinction because they're quite different, but also I think not so different because in line of what was being discussed earlier, the fight for independence, the fight for a free nation, was done and we have achieved. But I think to truly release ourselves from the grasp of colonialism, I think it's still difficult, and we still can't shake off all the haunting remnants of the colonialism and of our colonizers. So in a way, I think Khasi identity and the discourse on Khasi identity, the difficulties in representing our identity, and also about the difficulties in obtaining a visual culture at the state, I think we can sort of, these are important things, and I feel that in the works that I'll be showing, just a few ones of myself, would sort of open a door towards that. So this work is it's actually a photograph that I got online of these 4 Khasi women as photographed by the Britishers. And so what I did was, I didn't change much, but I put this Scottish tartan plate over the image, and sort of like how just looking at it and how it boxes them up in these certain areas, in a way says something more than what the actual photograph has to say initially. So a little bit of tweaking here and there, but just so much as for us to have a questioning and a dialogue with it, I guess. And the next one called Red Indian, Indian Red. So what I did in this photograph was, these are actually 2 different communities of people. The one on the right being the Khasi community, and the one on the left is actually an indigenous tribe in an indigenous community in North America. So what I found was common between them is this garment, which is foreign to them, but at the same time is being worn by both of them. So I think something as subtle as this, yet it brings 2 different communities that have had a history of colonizers, I think speaks a lot about what is still there and what other effects that it still has till now. Similarly, this work called Red Rose or White Orchid, it brings about that questioning of the identity, of you having to choose and of you having to determine which is which, whether it is the white orchid or the red rose, or the red rose or the white orchid, either of them. So, and I think a questioning and having these certain dialogues is important, because I think it's a step towards true freedom in a way, having and identifying the struggles that are still inherent in a community and of a people. So with that, I end my run through of the exhibition. And I want to say that if I did miss out a few of the works here, I request everybody to go to the official website of Riti Academy, and there will be a section for the exhibition, and I request everybody to go and see the works. And if anyone has, and so if anybody has any questions in regards to what I had shown or what Afreen or Barafel had shared, so please do put in the comments. Yeah, I think I saw one question.
I think there was one question. Yeah.
Yeah.
I think this is directed for you, Nafi. What is the name of the flora used in their aspirants?
Okay. Are you referring to the last work that I showed?
I think so, because he did not specify.
So if it is the last one, I'll just share it again so that I think it.
No, he wrote in the Tirot Singh painting.
Oh, in the Tirot Singh painting. Okay. In that case, I think if we can have Mario to speak a bit, I think would be fine, because it is his painting after all. So Mario, would you please explain to us the significance of the flower that you had kept in the Tirot Singh painting, or if there is any, or if it's just an amalgamation of things.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes,
we can hear you.
Actually, I just joined just now. I think a couple of seconds ago, I just completed my work from office. I didn't understand the question, actually. It was about the flowers, right?
Yes, about the flowers
Yeah.
that you used in your
Um,
paintings,
so,
and I think particularly the one that you used in the painting of Tirot Singh. Yeah.
okay, so every time I make an illustration, I always think in terms of commercialization. I always have this, or be it anything, I always think in terms of how I can market it in the world. I mean, like not in the world, but then in social media or anything. So suppose if I make into a merchandise, let's say if I were to make into a T-shirt or a kind of a mug or anything. So the form is very important. When you look at Tirot Singh, he has this circle around him with a with Kiklawa, so as I say, Labasa, the cloud leopards. So just to have the idea of not being too, so as I say, not too bland. So as I say, florals actually are kind of my thing to actually say, so as I say, now in today's world, when you look at t-shirts or any other print on fashion, guys or girls, they wear florals. So that was one of the major reasons that I used floral. And I love, one of the major concept also is like my mom, she loves flowers and she says that anything without flowers looks dead. So, and moreover, like flowers also is a form of commemorating people who have passed away. So yeah, those are one of the major reasons why I use the flowers.
Thank you, Mario. If anybody wants, you can post your questions on the chat box, or if anybody is live streaming on Facebook, you can also post your questions on Facebook itself. We will be taking in questions from different people on our seminar as well as our exhibition run through.
I think anybody from this Zoom meet also they can do. I've seen here Kong Antoinette. Maybe Kong, you might be having something to contribute, to comments, to remarks, or to ask question. Kong, if you can hear me. Kong Antoinette, she's the professor in the Khasi department of NEHU.
Okay.
So I'm sure she might be having something to contribute, to put her remarks or anything. Kong, if you please. Or anybody for that matter, anybody. Yeah.
Yes.
Yes, I can see Kong just now. Kong, yes.
Yeah. Yeah. This is a question directed to Barafel himself. Like, if we can incorporate, the scenario or a kind of picture or painting about the Khasi Dorbar and the importance of Kaktin. If you can bring out, you can incorporate in your presentations, I think it'll be more impressive. Can you hear me?
Yes, we
Yes,
can hear you.
yes, Kong, I can hear you. Yeah.
The discourse of language. The discourse of language incorporated in the Dorbar of Usim Tirat Singh. And I would like to correct the person who start the meeting about that Yao Musyang. Yao Musyang, it's not Lao Musyang. It's Yao Musyang.
Correct. Nafi, listen, that is not Lao, it's Yao.
Thank you for the correction. Yeah.
Okay.
And could you please repeat? You did mention about having to about, I think, the discourse on language and.
Yeah, the discourse language incorporated in the Khasi Dorbar.
Okay.
Okay.
Yes.
Discourse of language, discourse in Khasi Dorbar. That is my suggestions. because I'm not from the art side. So maybe artists can do this. Can you hear me, Nafi?
Yeah, yes.
Yes, Kong Antoinette, I can hear you. Thank you so much. And I think, yes, the discourse and language also is a very broad area that we can explore, given that even our own language, the Khasi language, and how it has transformed from something that is oral to something that is written, and what is being lost throughout time and what we still have till now. And I think to actually look into this and examine this, it would be very interesting. And because art, I think in itself, it is interdisciplinary and it is interconnected with different things. So even having the visual aspect of it, there's so many things that could be incorporated. I think the audio, the visual, and then you have the text, just the context of it itself. I think it can be very enriching for not only for us, but I think for the viewers and for people who will be interacting further on. So thank you so much.
Can we say something also, Nafi?
Yes, Barafat.
Yes, Barafat.
Yeah, okay. Thank you, Kong Antoinette. I'll take note of whatever suggestion that you have made. Now I wanted to ask, like I said from the very beginning when I presented a paper, I did not, purposely I didn't want to put any images, because my idea is to present to you this, this kind of discourse that has that point out certain historical blunder that is happening, and which also indicates certain idea of neglect on the various communities that prevail elsewhere around the periphery of the mainstream India. So that's why I address specifically to our local artists, Khasi artists, to have a look into this and let them bring out certain images out of the paper that I presented. This is one thing. Actually, before I wrote this, I prepared this paper also. I already have certain images in my head, but I don't want that those images that I planted to share with you should in any in any instance to impose or to give my perspective on others, to influence others. I want their nascent, their original expression based on the paper that I have presented. This is one thing. And regarding the Darbar, I thought about it, but I don't want to lengthen too much on the paper. I want to be specific on what I wanted to present. So, but maybe next time when we have another occasion like this, definitely, Kong, I will incorporate your idea into the paper. Thank you so much.
So basically, sorry. Kong, yes, continue.
Because you have already mentioned, you have already comment on the comment of the British officials who have commented something about the decorum or the discipline that is being conducted in the Khasi Darbar. One of the officials has already commented on this. So that is another point that you have to look at later. Thank you.
Yes, Kong. Yes, Kong. Personally, I feel that since I'm not from history background, I feel that I need to do a lot of research and consultation with expert in history and get to know all the details about this, and whatever oral discourse that I'm receiving from different people, I will try to incorporate and bring something different. Yeah.
So basically what Barafel was trying to talk about is more of a historicism and an approach to historicism by Khasi artists, local artists. So I particularly liked his paper because it insinuated in that direction that we do need to focus on this whole documentation, historicism, archaeological kind of painting tradition, apart from the fact that many artists have been doing paintings related to folklore and folklore interpretations. Or yeah, so it was very interesting, Barafel, your paper, and thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Afrin.
All right, so I think we are done, and I want to thank everybody who came here this evening to join us in this event, to hear us talk and to, just have this discourse. So I'm really extremely happy, and I thank everybody. And I thank Barafel. Thank you so much for your paper. Thank you for giving us this opportunity. And as the Riti Academy of Visual Arts, I think you keep going on strong. And so even from the side of us, the Northeast Arts Initiative, I hope we can continue like this. And I hope that we can continue to have these interactions with each other. I hope more people come in. And yeah, just that, Afreen. And thank you for your paper, Afreen. That was, enlightening. And at the same time, I think you have pointed on the very important points. And even for me, this whole topic of Orientalism and the colonial discourse, and especially about this whole West viewing the East as the other, as the Oriental, this very exoticized and romanticized view of it, I think has really, is something that we should look into and we need to be informed about, because for me, I think it's a very interesting paper. So yeah, if you have anything else to say as well.
Okay, so we will conclude this meeting. Firstly, we would like to thank Barafel because he reached out to us from NEAI, and we coordinated this program mainly because we are more involved in the digital platform. We deal with online galleries and with all social media platforms, including video conferencings. So we are very grateful to him that he reached out to us and he actually agreed to this collaboration. And we hope to have more collaborations like this in future. And thank you to everybody who participated and to all the artists also who submitted their artworks. And we hope to see you again sometimes. And I'd like to give this time to Barafel also if we want to give concluding statement.
Definitely, Afrin and Nafi. Actually, it has always been a teamwork. If you two are not there, also it would not have been create so much impact in this presentation right now. So I'm very grateful to both of you, and particularly to Afrin for the paper. It was an outstanding paper that you have presented, and maybe since I don't have a formal qualification in art, I would not be able to say anything, but I can understand that this westernization of any, not just art, anything that comes from the West is always very glamour, and it has created a trend for the entire world to follow it. So this is also what you have enlightened and show to us in terms of the art expression also. Thank you so much, Afrin. Your paper was outstanding. And to Nafi also, the images that you presented in the exhibition, it was I really liked it. Actually, more than that, you have earlier sent a few other images for a different purpose, which I don't want to share right now, right here. But it was outstanding. I like those images that you have sent to Riti Academy. I like it so much. Thank you, Nafi. And thank you to each and everyone who are participating. I mean, without your participation, this course would not have been successful. So I consider it to be very successful, to especially those who have asked questions. Perhaps Nafi, if we have a little bit, because I can see here a few artists that I can immediately see here, like Casper or Fernando or Fasterfield. If they have any question, already we have had something from Pascal. If you can still extend a little bit, if there is any chance for them to ask question, I would like to see that. But nevertheless, I take this opportunity to thanks everyone, one and all, and thank you very much from my side. Yeah.
Thank you.
If anybody has any more questions, please do unmute yourself or put it in the chat box. We are timing out the meeting because we have about 5 minutes left.
And also that Rafael, he mentioned just now, I think if any of the artists here who had submitted their works, if they want to talk about their works, I can always present the screen again and you can, say what you want to say about it. Like how Mario had
Talked about it.
Yeah. So I'll just maybe give a minute for that, for people to think. Otherwise, I think we can just end this meeting.
Looks like nobody else come on board. Maybe Mario, do you have anything else to say?
Actually, I think that's pretty much because like most of my artworks that I did, particularly for this this exhibition, also was thought about in terms of commercialization, in terms of how we can, sometimes art is not just, painting on the wall. Sometimes we need to think in terms like as the world and technology is moving forward, how can we incorporate, into art and technology to work together in terms of machinery also, like for example, now like that I use those illustrations. I actually print them on t-shirts, I print them on mugs, I print them on bags and everything. And we also thought of all of how to be on websites and, on social media and everything. So yeah, I just like to comment on that. Like,
yes, I think the aspect on, sorry, Afreen, aspect on commercializing and, the market of art is something that I think we can always discuss about and have more discussions later on, because I think it's a very important thing that the art community does not discuss upon much. And I think it would be interesting, for us to actually delve into it and see what is the real picture. So, yeah.
Exactly.
I think in the digital art space and the space that you're particularly working in is something that is very new, but is also something that is a discourse that hasn't been initiated in the gallery space itself.
Mm-hmm. Sure.
So we do want to take that up as a topic later on from our part, which is Northeast Arts Initiative. We are planning an exhibition in that regard, but we do also plan to collaborate with Barafel as well in this area. So we will let you know accordingly, because this digital art space is something which is very interesting and very contemporary.
Yes, it's true. I mean, especially in terms of COVID, I don't get materials as much because I want to buy materials for my artworks and then Amazon doesn't deliver. So what to do? I need to create something.
Thank you so much, Mario and Afreen and Barafel and everybody who is present here today. So I think that that makes us done with everything. And so I think I'll end the meeting. Thank you, everyone, once again, and have a pleasant evening.
Thank you, everybody. Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.